Here from Mudhoni from Limuru, and she says, good evening, doctor. I am a mother to a 20-year-old campus girl who has now decided to cohabit with her boyfriend. How do I persuade her to stop this madness? For I did not teach her to be what she is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's challenging for the mother. But
Very
again,
challenging.
You know, when children are over 18, you've done your best. You've given them, you know, it's said, train a child in the ways of the Lord, and when they grow up, somehow they will remember.
Right.
So somehow this girl, as she grows up, she will discover that what I'm actually doing is wrong from what I've always known. Mm-hmm. So basically, when they're over 18, you can only tell them. And you also need to be careful that you don't drive them away. Mm-hmm. Because again, if you become very nagging, they'll even stop coming home even over the weekend. They will switch you off. So basically, you do your best. And that's why we say before teenage, that's a time to bond with your child and make sure that you instill all the morals you want to instill. Mm-hmm. When they're over 18, you can only remind them. Mm-hmm. And don't get depressed. And if the person is over 18, you've done your best. Let them make their choice. People make mistakes. They realize their mistake. And they come back and say, I knew I was doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. So let her relax. Let her continue praying for the daughter. And hope that one day they'll either formalize the marriage or realize that they either, if they are not getting married, that they need to stay, not to be sexually intimate. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I also think it's a very vital to also find out, did she also have a father figure perhaps, growing up? Perhaps she's trying to find comfort with this man she's cohabiting to occupy space. Mm-hmm. Is that sometimes a problem? If a girl does not have a father figure?
Yeah, it could be a problem. It is said that, girls will always, when they are looking for a man later on in life, they look at the characteristics they saw in their dad, and if their dad was there and loving, they are likely to land with a man who is very loving, which is scientifically proven. If the dad was abusive and was not there, you're likely to land with such a man. So that could be a possibility. It could just be peer pressure,
right?
Again, or it could just be either she's getting financial aid from this man. There are many things we don't know, but the only way we can know is for this father to be friendly to the girl and try and discuss what could possibly be causing that. And again, if really they are over 18, I know they are in college, is there a possibility that if they are so much in love, could they just get married and decide, let's not have kids until we finish our studies? Because you would rather get married and not sin than to continue living together
and sin,
yeah.
Wow, that is some real sound advice. I think I'll cross that path. There's a question here from Mark from Nairobi. He says, to what extent do you draw the line when it comes to protecting your children? And in this sense, it seems like protecting your children from what? from things, external pressures and forces? To what extent?
Yeah, basically, you just, the things we've already mentioned, you bonding with your child, setting limits and making sure that your limits are followed. If they are not followed, you enforce consequences. I'm imagining that when this caller says overprotecting, does it mean overprotecting to the extent that they don't enforce consequences when the children misbehave? Or does it mean overprotectiveness to the extent that they cannot go to visit their friends next door when they are unaccompanied? Or is it overprotection in terms of, I don't want my kid to walk to school alone because the world is crazy and they might be abused on the way? Because it's rather broad. But again, we also need to realize that children need some protection. Especially, we know that people who abuse children are people the child knows. Could be a relative, could be a neighbor, could be a house help. So if it's protection against sexual abuse or physical abuse, they need to do it. But again, you need to balance. You need to allow this child also to explore the world and learn, and you also need to make sure that they are safe.
So it's important to create a whole lot of trust whereby your child can come to you no matter the case. Huh?
Yeah, and basically when you bond and become friends, they'll always tell you this and this happened. You'll be their friend. Before they consult their peers, they'll come to you first.
And that is very, very important. Miracle Ndema from Nairobi says, Dr. Catherine, my husband seems to favor one child over the other. As a result, I have sibling rivalry. These manners can affect my children much later. What should I do about this?
Yeah, that is a very big mistake for a parent to do, to show favoritism. This creates a sibling rivalry. It makes the other child who feels not favored also not achieve their best potential. So basically, each parent needs to love uniquely, because you'll always find your children are different. They have different talents. They have different challenges. So you need to keep praising each of their talents. For example, many parents will only praise the academic performance.
Yes.
They forget that this other child could be very talented in football, and you forget to help them promote that talent, take them for football matches, praise them when their team has won. So you need to love each child uniquely. You need to identify their talents, keep praising them, keep rewarding them for them. Each one of them, every child has a talent in them. And again, you also this caller is actually in dilemma because she says it's her spouse who is doing it, who is favoring one child
over the other.
Yeah. So basically they need to talk in privacy that I feel this is happening. Could you please control this, and because it's affecting the other child. So basically they have to discuss. It can actually affect the other child negatively.
Oh dear. Yeah. All right. There's a question here from Pamela. She says, I'm a young mother and I have 2 daughters who have just hit their teenagehood years. How do I talk to them about sex, as I want them to be open with me? So this is a young mother. She really does not know how to go about that. How does she break it down? Do you bond? How do you say, oh, can you see that boy over there? He's cute. Then you try and find out if they'll now open up and say, yeah, mommy, I think he is, but maybe he should have had his hair different. And then you bring up the topic. How do you talk about these 2 young girls?
By the way, basically when you're dealing with teenagers, you need to be careful to get their opinion even before you bring out your opinion. So, for example, if your child might come at home and say, so and so was given a letter by a girl, and gave a letter to a girl, and the girl tore it, and so before you even comment, you need to ask the child, what do you think of that, so that you hear their opinion. But again, about sexuality, parents need to start talking about it early. As early as the time when you hear any questions, where do babies come from? How does the baby move from the father to the mother? As they ask those questions, even when they are young, you need to actually answer them, and answer them honestly at their level. So sexuality, you can't wait until you start discussing it at teenage. You need to start it early.
Now, for example, I have this little beautiful niece. She's about 4 years of age, and she came to me one day and she's like, Auntie, she saw a couple of clippings on a soap opera, and she came and she asked, Auntie, I wonder what mommy and daddy do when they go to the room. Do they sleep with clothes on or without clothes on? And I was dumbfounded. How do I explain this to this young girl? So my reasoning was, sweetie, don't worry. When you grow a little bit older, I'll explain it to you. Was I right or wrong, or should I have answered immediately?
Okay, basically when you're faced with such a question, you need first of all to find out from the child what they know.
Oh, yes.
So why do you ask that? What do you think? Do you think people should sleep with clothes on? Then you get to know, because probably they'll open up and say, I have just seen on TV a man and his wife sleeping naked and all that. So you get to know what they actually know, because you might be thinking you're protecting them, and when they've heard it from school. So basically, once you hear what they know, then you can guide them by explaining to them that when people are married and they are old enough, then you can bring in the issue of sexual intimacy, that in marriage it's okay, but you need to be careful. First of all, you need to know what they know, because you don't want to assume they don't know when they actually know. That you tell them you know when you grow older, when they've already been told that marriage, when your dad and mom get in the room, they lock up and they have sexual intimacy. So you need to know it and actually give. It's embarrassing, but you have to give the correct information.
So I gave the wrong information. Shame on me.
We won't discuss that.
Shame on me. Now, on to our very last question, since time is far much spent. There's one question that says, I have fallen out of love with my wife for 14 years. How do I tell her that I'm having an affair and I want a divorce because our communication is not good?
That's sad.
Very sad.
Yeah, because I would have been happier if the person is saying it's 14 years, I've fallen out of love with my wife and I want to recreate it again. But it's unfortunate that they're asking for a divorce. And I really hope that he knows that divorce will come with its own consequences. The best thing would have been to work on their marriage and save it. But again, like we said when we were discussing about the 18-year-old who is cohabiting with the... Once you give people the information, then they make the choice. We know that divorce is wrong, that once you get married, and you can be happy in your marriage if you work on it. And even when you've had that... episode of unfaithfulness, if you really want to work on it, you can work on it, because it started slowly. Little things didn't go on well. The communication just didn't block one day. It started slowly. Either one of you got very busy and knew that their spouse was always at home anyway. Why should I make the effort? And it died. But I want to encourage this person that they can recreate love. They can feel in love again. They can feel in